Shalom, when it starts, start off as always by giving all praise to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushua, Bashem Kakadash, double honors to the Apostle Great Millstone, and honors to you brothers doing the work of the Most High in truth and in sincerity. Yahweh's real name, in whom the world ignorantly calls God, Jehovah Yahweh, his real name is Yahweh, his on street name is Yahweh Shai, and when we pray Yahweh, Ba Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba meaning in, Ha meaning done, Sham meaning name, right, so Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai, right, this is some information I came across, and just to highlight, this is not the B, not Babylon B. Not the B is Babylon B's, sister account, if you will, where basically they post articles that sound like they should be satire but aren't. So things that are just like, right, that's actually kind of crazy, right? And once again, it's over there, in the Eastern world, but I kind of like going into these things, because you kind of see that when the scriptures say that the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, right? It's not just saying that, right? It's Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the face of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he, right? When the scriptures are saying the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, it's not just a framing of a theoretical thing. Esau's policies and the way that he set this world up, yeah, he will allow certain countries to do things kind of their own way, but his underlying wine, his underlying poison is going throughout the world, right? To the end that you get certain nations, once again, that that basically are dying off, right? This is Japan's birth rate hits record low. Over 2 people died for every baby born. Right now, when you understand let me see if I can get an image of it real quick and bring it to the tab, right? Just looking for one with a nice, so you can see the reading okay, right? Yeah, see, it's funny, right? There we go. Okay, so open image, and then move image to another tab, right? Okay, so I don't know how well that comes across, right? What does it say? Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, right? When you understand that this is what this devil is aiming for, right? When you remember that these got destroyed, and the time they got destroyed was, I remember it being like 31, 33, like, there was like, those numbers, right, of of the occult were present. Okay, just put it to you like put it like that, because I forget exactly the time, right? But when you see this, that basically means that these Ammonites are dying off, and hey, look, man, I need some Ammonite slaves in the kingdom, right? But that's what the scripture says. Let's grab it, right? It says this is Matthew 24:22, right? It says, and except those days should be shortened, they should no flesh be saved, right? And that's why originally I'd wanted to call this, basically, the quote from the Planet of the Apes about the beast man. The Spirit had it whereby, that went, when I looked up, went into something else, did a video on that alone, because that's a heavy quote, that one, right? But basically, that's it. If the Lord doesn't come back, right, this man will destroy everything. He will destroy everyone. Okay, but it says, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Right, because when you look at numbers like this, right, it's Japan's population changed by year, right? So since 2013, right, there's been a die off, but basically 2023, you're looking at minus 831,000, right? Now, I will caveat that with this particular person never really post their sources. They just say this is a statistic, right? But they'll never actually go into how this works. Okay. Now you may be like, oh, but how is this engineered? Now I know in Japan there's a horrible work culture, right? So people just constantly work and work and work and work. Now those those Moabites and those Ammonites, they're going to be good workers. They're going to make for great slaves in the kingdom, right? But we're still going to push them to procreate, right? Because what's the point of having slaves that don't procreate, man? Like you need to procreate, because only Esau is about just completely getting rid of all the people. Like we just saw the image, right? Maintain humanity under 500 million, right? And he already thinks that there are too many people, right? Now this is something that I know of in South Korea, and how he has basically, with his policies, right? Which, in fact, let's since I've used that word, now this is originally referring to Antiochus, right? But we can use it today, right? It says Daniel 8:25. It says, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many, right? So he does these things by policies, right? By putting in certain policies here, certain policies there, right? He's able to control that particular nation. He's able to basically, well, he's able to destroy, right? Because people may just be like, oh, it's just something, right? But it's something very particular about South Korea, which South Korea has the lowest birth rate of any nation, in the world, right? But basically, they've got a rent system called Jonsei, right? Now, for us, when we rent, the rent comes out monthly, right? I'm here for a month, I pay my rent. I'm here for the next month, I pay my rent. If I don't pay my rent, then eventually I get kicked out. Over in South Korea, it works very differently, right? You basically, so it says in the Jonsei scheme, right, tenants put up a deposit typically worth as much as 70% of the home's value, then live without paying rent for 2 years until the landlord returns the full amount, right? So it's like you basically get a deposit and then you give it to the landlord, right? And then at the end of that, then you basically get the money back, and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. However, if you can't afford to move out, what happens? So then you basically end up in a system where you are staying with your parents way too long. Okay, you're staying with your parents for way too long, to the end that, because I'm my old woman was Korean, so would ask us like, so how do people over there basically do their thing, right? And especially when you consider it's a very conservative country, you can't just be turning up with a baby, okay, right? So this is why you end up in these situation where people ain't procreating. You got work, then things are too expensive, right? So it says average rent. Basically, this is rent. When you see it, it's basically average median. It's a median, so middle. Jonsei price 178 million won, right? Which is 105,000 GBP, and 133,000 USD, right? Just to move out of your parents' house. So people do that a lot later on, right? But that's, once again, these are just the different ways that this man pushes these different ideologies, right, in the world. Because, for instance, right now over in the certain of those lands, especially in Korea, right, women have embraced feminism, which is also not helping with these situations. So it's a perfect storm, right, for to find ways to maintain, to reach his goals, basically, right? And as we always touch him, because ultimately, because I'm quoted it in the previous one, ultimately when we're talking about these other nations, they don't matter, right? Isaiah 40:15, behold, the nations are as a drop of a bucket, and are counted as a small dust of the balance. Behold, he taketh up the isles as a very little thing, right? So ultimately, these heathen nations, they're not important, right? But it's just it's just like I said, for me, I find it very fascinating just how pervasive and how sneaky, right, this Edomite and his policies are, right? But you be like, oh, but those you're talking about, the land of Ammon and then the land of Korea, whatever, right? But look at Shinzo Abe, right? He used to be the prime minister, whatever his role was, right? What's he wearing? He's wearing a suit, right? And this, you wouldn't say this is necessarily Western clothing that you see here, right? It's still got that, kind of, the way they kind of like to dress. But this ain't this ain't a kimono. This ain't their traditional dress, right? So E has got into these worlds by getting into the minds of the leaders. Did a video last week about how basically America came and took control over Japan and what witchcraft they used there, where they allowed the emperor to stay, right? And he was very, they used him as a puppet, right? He was, he was used as a puppet, and that's what all of these different leaders of these different worlds are. Ultimately, they're puppets of the elite, right? It's Genesis 3 and 1, right? So now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Yahweh power had made, right? Look into this word here, subtle, so shrewd, right? Crafty, right? Did we not read that, in Daniel 8, once again, originally referring to Antiochus, but can be used to these Edomites as well, right? Just as a whole, right? About craft and prospering, right? And that's it, right? So he said unto woman, yea, hath the Most I said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden, right? So this Edomite comes and he knows how to navigate the people. He's done the experiments. He understands, if you do this and you do that, then guess what? I have full control over you, right? But that's that. So it's Revelation 18 and 3. So all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Right, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. The merchants and once again, as we're going into, right, the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. Right, because there are certain you have loads of people in either country that don't subscribe to that way of life. Right, in fact, ran into an Ammonite not too long ago, and they were like, "Look, man, the work situation in Japan, right, is terrible." They were like, they preferred working here, and over here, I'm like, "Bro, I don't like working here." So it was very interesting, right? Just once again, going to show you just how much this Western ways. Like I said, I find it very interesting how pervasive it is, but that's the scriptures, right? That is a fulfillment of what the scriptures are saying, right? It says, for all nations, so I'll read that again, right? For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of fornication, right? That wine representing philosophies, right? So then the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And when the kings, what does it say in Sirach, the 10th chapter, about when you got a king, right? And he's basically an unwise king, right? Basically destroys the people underneath, right? Once again, you will have people underneath that, like, they ain't down with it, but guess what? That ends up being their way of life, right? So the merchants of the earth are wax rich through the abundance of our delicacies. Because once again, when you look at Japan, you look at South Korea, you look at other nations that he has basically allowed to to do certain things. Guess what? Those nations are are doing okay, right? Japan financially, yeah, you got debt, but when you look at their society, you've got it's the first world is the point, right? It's classed as the quote first world, right? So, which quote we continue on, right? This is Sirach, the 12th chapter, and the 10th verse. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness, right? And that's it. He cannot be trusted, right? When he comes and brings you a deal, it's a bad deal, right? We'll carry on. Point I once in the 12th verse, right? So though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. Set him not by thee, right? Lest when he have overthrown thee, he stand in thy place, right? So don't have this Edomite around you, man, right? Because this Edomite is gonna bring to you things that are detrimental to you, right? It says, neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat, and thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith, right? So that's it, man. Don't have this Edomite around, and that's why after 1,000 years of hardcore bondage, you ain't gonna be around. There's gonna be no need for them whatsoever, right? But basically, yes, set him not by thee, man. Right? He's gonna come. He's gonna bring policies of death, right? This is something Spirit has me say a lot, right? That this man comes and has policies of death, right? In fact, let me start from 4, Habakkuk 2 and 4. It says, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Right, so that last part's talking about, the Israelites, the elect per se, but rather more so. But the first part, right, his soul which is lifted up is not upright, right? Only a demon would want to achieve that. Only a demon will go above and beyond, right, to allow all of this to happen. Because even as I'm saying, I'm thinking about how in the West, what do you have? You've got abortion, right? So yeah, okay, cool. You don't work as hard. You can buy your own house, but guess what? We're gonna push abortion on you. Yeah, on in the West, in the East, Salaki, where abortion is, not as accepted socially. Right, I believe Korea only legalized abortion like 2 or 3 years ago. Don't know about Japan. What would you call it? Okay, so yeah, they've been had up to 22 weeks, right? So it says WAPO. Yeah, so it's in Japan, and so right. In fact, let me move it to this tab, right? Which tab are we on? Habakkuk 2, right? In Japan, abortion is legal, but most women need their husband's consent, and that's the thing, husband's consent, right? Which leads me to think that a woman that ain't got anyone, right, that's gonna be a socially frowned upon thing, right? And that's from June 2022, right? So the point that I want is what was I saying? Yeah, the point that I want. Yeah, so in the West they push abortion, but in the East they just overwork these motherfuckers to the end that they don't procreate, right? And even when you actually look at a lot of the ones that are procreating, us came across this one, right? This is total fertility rate in the United Kingdom, right? Which basically children, fancy way of saying children per women. And you look at this graph, right? Where you see the immigrants is basically where you see, people are still having children. So you zoom into the map, right? As I found it very interesting because this is barking and Dagenham, right? Which is you got a lot of J there. You just basically got a lot of immigrants and barking and Dagenham, and that's like well above the national average, right? In all of these places here, right? Richmond, Kingston, these more bougie places, Camden, fucking hell, right? And that's like hipster central. Right? So I just found that one particularly interesting as well. Like, I like, Spurs, I like my stats and stuff like that. But yeah, because the only reason I even looked this up, or rather, was one of the things that someone said is these other nations probably have the same issue too, right? It's just you got immigrants that are, propping it up, right? You got these immigrants propping it up. But I digress. Salakia, right? Verse Habakkuk 2 and 5. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death. Right? Once again, policies of death. That's what this man pushes. Right? Cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth them unto him all people. Let me see how much more I'm gonna get. Yeah, I'll read it. I'll read it quick, right? But this is a turning of things upside down, right? That the Lord has once again has allowed Esau to do. Right? Isaiah 29:16. Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as a potter's clay, right? For shall the works of him that made it, he made be known, or shall the thing framed of him that framed it, he had no understanding. Right, and he's once again is pushing our ideologies that children are a problem. We shouldn't have children. Children are bad for the environment. That's one of his would you call it one of his favorite ones now. Oh, children are bad for the environment, so people frown on having children. But anyone knows. I mean, they say something different. I've seen different numbers, but they what some number says around 2 children per woman. Another says that I saw said 1.5 children per woman is what is needed to maintain a society, right? So when you're talking about 0.7 or 0.5 children per woman, you're basically saying that nation is going to die off. Okay. But this is what has been turned upside down, because the scripture says this, right? It's Genesis 1:27. So the Most High created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, right? Male and female created he them. Didn't want to start there, but I read it anyway. It says, verse 28, and the Most High blessed them, and the Most High said unto them, well, really the powers, right? Because when you're talking about Genesis, the first chapter, right, this is talking about Yahweh Shai and the angels, okay? It says, but this is the point, right? So it says, and the powers blessed them, and the power said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, all right, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth, right? So this is why Esau is just a contrary. Esau's contrary to life. He's contrary to the scriptures, right? Because the guidance that the Most High gave was be fruitful and multiply. What's Esau saying? Don't have children, right? He's implementing policies throughout the world, right? Witchcraft throughout the world, where people end up not having children, right? People have children later and later and later in life. A lot of people say it's too expensive to have children, right? you know this is Psalms 127:3, right? It says, lo, children are an heritage of Yahweh, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that have his quiver what? Full of them. Right? It says, and they shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate. Right? In the kingdom, we're going to be able to fulfill that. Okay, right now, and this is the thing, Esau's made having children almost like a curse, right? They're constantly being harassed about, putting, sticking needles in them, constantly, worrying about what they're being taught in school, worrying whether they're gonna turn into a Mo, worry, come and, come and just take your kids away, right? Basically having, because what you have this something called loco parentis, if I remember it right, in school, where basically the teacher's your voice, right? When in that time you're in school, okay. But in the kingdom, right, children are going to return back to being what they are, and that is a blessing, right? Isaiah 60:22 says, a little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, Yahweh, will hasten it in his time. All right, so we're gonna be having kids and lots of kids in the kingdom. All right now we just out here hurt, and stuff like that. But in the kingdom, we gonna be getting it in, right? Things are gonna be put the right way up, where it's just like expected. This is like, oh shit, you only got 100 kids, brother. Like, what's going on? Right. So, so a lot of information, a lot of numbers, and just stuff like that. Like I said, I just find it fascinating, because it is proof of the scriptures, when the scripture says, that the earth is given into the hands of the wicked, right, and how it was more subtle than any beast of the field, right, and about all of this wine, right. But yeah, as always, laws with us are edifying. Till next time we say shalom.